is able to trace what's going on, what they need to do next. And some other tracks as well in making sure that, Outlook, if you use Outlook or other email tracking features like turning on delivered message, read message, did the person actually read my message? You want to be a little bit now about some of these trackers, so that you can know that someone read your message and therefore you expect a response by this time rather than, being apprehensive about that. So that ends the first part of embracing the new norm on working from home, right? So again, to summarize, we're saying the 4 pillars of that. Number 1 is making sure that the home setup, and I want to start from home instead, right? How the home setup is really, set up for success. And then how you make sure that from a team engagement perspective, now when you're reaching out, how do you make sure that you're well equipped emotionally, building trust as well within teams, that collaboration tools are used as well to make sure that you drive the best team engagement. And then, self-productivity management as well, very important. Always remember burnout, right? It's very easy to burn out when you're working from home because you don't have clear lines on when you start or stop work. Different from when you're doing an 8 to 5 job going to a physical office. And of course, lastly, all the various tools that are available to you. And again, like I said, this is all about our Stay Alive campaign, making sure that we are working with businesses now that can stay alive as a business. So we go to the next part, the second part, which is stay alive, staying connected with your customers. So stay alive as a business, staying connected with your customers. So basically, this is about how we make sure that remote customer business management. What are the things that you need to look out for? And when you're managing teams remotely, when you're managing your customers remotely, you're managing, business ecosystems remotely, including suppliers, people in your supply chain, in your value chain. You need to know manage it remotely, sitting at home or away from the office because of the challenge we have now on COVID. So how do you make sure that you still drive efficiencies and stay alive as a business? Because the worst thing that you like to see to happen is that after the COVID pandemic, the post-COVID, is that you come back and find that your customer is not with you anymore, right? Because you did not continue the remote connection with customers. You find your employees are not with you like you thought they were. They were using that time doing other things and you didn't stay connected like you should have stayed connected so that you can come back quickly to whether it's a V or a W or a U-shaped, you come back and, on the upswing post-COVID of the economy, that you are also on that swing, moving on faster than trying to figure out, is my customer, are my teams, is my manager still with me or not? A couple of statistics to kick us off on this. All right, 37% of high growth companies, right, use inside sales as primary sales strategy. 8 in 10 prospects prefer talking to sales reps over email, which matches up with a percentage of about 70% who use it, right? Industry study says that about 42%, right, of companies, cold calling, those companies that thought that cold calling, right, was a dead phenomenon, basically experienced 42% less growth than those who say that it was alive. So beg your pardon on that. Then 50% of buyers like speaking over the phone compared to 70% of reps, right? So basically it means that, speaking remotely or handling your customers remotely is actually productive. It is a thing. It is out there. It is going on. So we shouldn't be too worried about the fact that we're not able to see our customers or our teams remotely, right? So this task, I think, is almost, I would say, encouraging that this new norm we're talking about is actually an okay normal, right? And it also depends on the demographics you're talking about, right? So some of the millennials, the younger generations, are pretty okay with things done remotely, right? So some of us, well, we belong to a different age bracket. We need to start getting accustomed to remote management and remote management of customers and employee and remote business connections. So like we said at the beginning, we will look at it on 2 aspects. The first one is managing teams, and the second is managing customers, right, remotely, basically to keep our businesses growing, to stay alive as a business remotely. So first, managing teams remotely. And we just listed right there, if you may see that, we just listed right there a couple of challenges that we see from research, ourselves, things we've experienced, some of us experienced in our past lives as well when managing teams remotely, is these became were some of the key challenges. I could start from the bottom: hiring, recruiting and onboarding remotely, major challenge. It's so easy to do interviews when you see people face to face, easy to walk people around when they're coming as a new employee. This is this person, this sits over here, all of that. When you're onboarding them, doing that remotely is a challenge, Diversity, right? I'm starting from bottom up. Diversity, right? Easy enough to build cultural bridges when you can see our teams in one room or in one office. Very difficult to handle cultural divides when teams are not together. So that's part of the challenge, being able to look at how diversity plays a big role nowadays, especially when trying to drive productivity through diversity, and then now you're not together anymore, and therefore it means the challenge is even more amplified. Coordination, right? Difficulty in close collaboration leads to lack of project coordination, especially when teams are working together to ensure that a common objective is achieved. Communication is another challenge, right? To be able, we miss out on those small little nonverbal cues that as humans we've evolved to know when to do something or when to stop doing something, right? Without being told, stop or start, right? So we lose those, nonverbal, cues in communication. Performance tracking is another challenge as well, right? So being able to track performance remotely now becomes a new skill we have to acquire, right? Cohesion, right? Lack of team comradeship, and the feeling of being left out, right? When you're not working in one place or in one office is another challenge. Then roles where at times, folks are not sure what, role is what, so, what I'm supposed to do. Yes, I know this is my job description or these are my tasks, but when working in an office, it's very easy to understand where you fit into a team and work your way through, even without being told. So when working remotely, how do you get to understand what are the key roles and responsibilities you could have been doing that you thought, were not really your role as well? So that's another challenge that we see. And I'm sure, you could put on the chart on the Q&A, what are the challenges that you see in your own organization and you've experienced even in the last couple of days or weeks as well. So what are some of the best practices that we would like to mention this afternoon? Transparency, right? So again, these are answering some of the challenges or just answering some of them in a grouped fashion as well. So clear roles and responsibilities, very critical when you want to drive now transparency, very important. Then the next one, in driving transparency is making sure that, you have documented and published schedules, including personal times offs, right? So one needs to be able to put in their calendar and say, what, in 2 weeks, I'm going to take 2 days off. I'm going to, tomorrow, I'm going to take 4 hours off, right? It's registered with the HR, yes, but you want to make sure that you publish that even in your calendar as well, right? It's very important to drive that transparency, especially when you have dotted lines to some other people as well, and they think you should be involved in what they're doing, and then you're not there, or you're doing something else that they thought and they wanted you to do something else. So you want to make sure that you're very transparent in making sure you document and publish schedules, including personal time offs. Project tracker is very critical for transparency, and setting up ground rules early. I cannot overemphasize. If you haven't done it, if you have not received it from your management, please do it. Please ask for it. Ask for the ground rules early. So it's very clear. If you will be starting to work from 10 o'clock in the morning, let that be known. If you'll be starting to work from 6 o'clock in the morning and then you want to clock off at 4 p.m., please let that known. Let the ground rules be very clear early what needs to happen. Part of the ground rules also are in terms of the response times that are needed for emails as well, or texts as well. So for example, if I say urgent, I expect a response maybe within 30 minutes or within an hour. If I say this, maybe I expect this, but at the very least, I don't expect an email not to be responded to within 6 or 12 or 24 hours. So set up the ground rules very, very early to make sure that we're transparent on what the expectations are. The next one is cohesion. right? Very, very important. Building rapport. And I'm speaking to managers here, right? That you want to proactively build rapport with your team. They're not able to see you. They don't know what you think about them. There could be in constant consternation depending on what email you sent last. There could be in constant worry. You want to make sure you actively build rapport with your team. Regular one-on-ones and make it longer. Make it longer while you can. And please do not cancel one-on-ones unless extremely critical, unless it's an emergency, because especially your direct report could have been building up to that one-on-one, looking up to it, has prepared for it. They don't know what your demeanor is, and therefore when you cancel it, they might think it's something to do with them as well, right? Or maybe bad news is coming. So you don't want to cancel one-on-ones if you can avoid it. And if you do, make sure that it's done in good time, but also well managed, and try and drive more of a personal to person rapport, even in that case, rather than just sending an email and saying, hey, cancelled and we'll schedule another time. Team bonding, you want to be very, very proactive about this, making sure that you actually actively and creatively create group gatherings as well, remotely online. We've seen a lot of parties that are being done online now. A lot of businesses are moving their team gatherings online. So you get creative on how this to happen. You can do this, whether it's, dressing style or stuff like that. Just get the teams to bond, build that cohesion online as well. You want to actively encourage and embrace diversity as well, right? So it shouldn't just be a given that you expect people to work together and embrace different cultures. You want to establish programs that actively embrace diversity and cultural differences. Then you want to get personal, right? So that divide that can exist between manager and team and all that, you want to get personal, embrace familiarity. This is the time that if you're a manager that did not embrace familiarity, you want to really try and learn this new trick. Embrace familiarity. Care for the COVID-19 cabin fever. Some of the people that maybe report to you, having to deal with the fact that they're all holding into one place, they haven't seen their friends, they haven't seen their families, maybe some of their family members or friends are dealing with directly on the challenge as well with the disease. So you want to be able to really, care about your employees in this matter. Get personal. The power of video, right? Messaging or meetings. Don't underestimate the power of video in creating cohesion, especially when managing remotely. Being able to leave a video message, easy to do a town hall, easy before to just walk in and say something or send an email. People are seeing you, they know what's going on. You want to be able to drop just a video email, messaging for the week. These are things we need to do for the week. Don't just write it on email, just leave a video. Record yourself, make it funny if you so wish, right? Get it goofy. Just get your message out there on video. Again, encourage video meetings rather than audio meetings only. And then, unplanned conversations are not a very bad idea, right? Just the same way, just drop in and ask someone, hey, what do you think about this? Or just, chit chat. Feel free to just, pump in one of those unplanned conversations as well. Next one or pretty much actually lastly, on managing teams remotely, some of the best practices. Communication. You want to be able to polish up on your communication skills, especially online communication skills. Depending on the age demographics where you are as a manager, and online communication, is cool or be a new skill you need to learn, or could be something that, could be a challenge that you need to polish up on, including things like just emoticons, right? GIFs. You want to now start polishing, if before you wrote straight line emails or straight line text messages, you want to, start learning a little bit more to put some of those emoticons into action as well. Power of tools, both for communication and tracking tasks. Setting up cadence for communication response expectations, very, very important as well, right? So what are the regular meetings? And then what do we expect out of these regular meetings? And hey, if I send an email, like I said before, when do I expect a response back? And when should you expect a response from me as well? So if you send me an email, I'm saying that the cadence is that depending on what is classified as, I will respond by this time as well. This is the time where this cadence is so critical, because especially if you're a manager, you've got one of your employees who sent you an email, you haven't responded for days, it can't be a cause for worry and unnecessary tension. So you want to be very, very proactive in how you drive this, making sure that this is not something that's just good to do, and to set up a cadence that of how you respond yourself as well, but also how they respond back to your email. And then, of course, in making sure that you still drive brainstorming, brainstorming events as well. Whiteboarding, make it possible online as well, right? Very effective in making sure there's collaboration on projects. Then let's look at the what's of this, right? Now, this is pretty much about now staying alive with your customers, right? In terms of the calls, email connection, digital customer feedback as well. So I want to start off by looking at some of the key focus areas when it comes to the call connection. Being the brand ambassador, right? Remotely demonstrating the brand, very important, right? Verbal skills, I cannot overemphasize how verbal skills is so critical, right? In that call connection, whether it's a video call or it's an audio call, the verbal skills, choice of words, pacing and tonality, very, very important as well now to start to pay attention to those cues as well, right? Preparation, the signs of pre-call preparation to understand the business of your customer, very, very important, right? Making sure that you have done enough preparation that in that 5-10 minutes of a business call, you have outlined exactly what needs to be achieved, and you'll be able to get as much success from it as possible. Lastly, but pretty much the most powerful here, is understanding the business personality types of who you're speaking to from a business perspective. And this could be divided into about 4, so to speak, right? 4 business personalities. For those who have, are aware of this, great stuff. For those who've never, seen this before, please join us here. Driver, guardian, integrator, pioneer. These are the 4 pretty much, a lot of folks believe are the 4, if you had to divide all the folks you meet in a business, kind of you can put them in these 4 quadrants, or mix of a few of them as well, right? So you could get one person that pretty much will play different roles depending on the occasion. But driver, guardian, integrator, pioneer. And what do you do when you're faced with that now remotely, right? When you cannot see them physically. So driver, these are folks who are analytical, right? Action-oriented, are very direct, they move fast, they're more quantitative than qualitative. Guardian, realist, they're thorough and detailed, they're deliberate and very methodical. They're so focused on the how and the why. They're heavy risk money minimizers, and they're more qualitative than quantitative. Then the integrators, right, from a personality type of business, is collaborative folks. They're relationship oriented. They're pretty much empathic, and they could be indecisive because they're more diplomatic than anything else. They try to drive consensus than anything else. Then pioneers, right? They're adaptable. They're creative. They're pretty much risk takers. They're big picture focused, and yes, these folks can pretty much talk for a while, right? So they're your typical salespeople, right? So how do you make sure that you understand, like we said before, maintaining that call connection? You need to understand the personality of the person on the other side, and you don't have much time to understand the verbal cues, so you want to be able to at least place them in one of these 4 quadrants, and then now in your call preparation, prepare in how you're going to drive the call to achieve success in that business connection. So how do you pretty much align towards those 4 business personalities in maintaining that call connection? The driver, you pretty much want to be able to stand up, but stay calm, right? The guardians, you want to have prepared a lot of information for them. You want to stick to facts, leave emotions out. They don't care about that. They want facts, and they want to see preparation as well. Integrators, they want that connection. So give it to them. Be an active listener. Your active listening skill set will be your best foot forward, right? Will be your best foot forward. So you want to be an active listener when it comes to that. Pioneers, basically you want to take a backstage because they will talk and talk a lot. Draw them out with their ideas. They will talk about the ideas. So you will get success out of the business call connection by making sure you draw them out, get them to speak about what they need to speak about, and they will go on and on it, but you will maintain that business call connection. So you want to be able to, from a business perspective, split your customers in one of these four or in a hybrid of those four. The next one I want to go into in the call connection is on cold calling as well. Cold calling is not dead. It's dead alive. It's very alive. So 74% of companies say that, folks don't leave voicemails, right? In 2007, it took about 3.68 cold call attempt to reach a prospect. Today, it takes about 8 attempts. It's getting harder. On average, sales managers make no more than 2 attempts to get a lead through cold calls. It takes an average of 18 calls to actually connect with a buyer. These stats are so important, and that's why we begin with them, right, before we go to the best practices, because they teach us a couple of things about cold calling. So we've spoken about, earlier on, we spoke about how we want to be able to maintain a business call. These are people we already know. We know the customers, the team members, they are suppliers, they know business ecosystem, we know them already. But you'll be faced with the part where you have to now go and do a cold call, right? And these are the stats about cold calls, right? And then let's look at it from the sales rep side, right? Most don't prepare, 42% don't prepare enough. They feel they don't have enough information. 85% of prospects or customers are heavily dissatisfied with their on-the-phone experience. Imagine that. Sales reps spend about 15% of their time leaving voicemails, right? These are according to Ringlead. When leaving a voicemail for prospects, the optimal length is stated to be about 14 seconds, rather 8 to 14 seconds. And then unfortunately, 44% of salespeople give up after just one follow-up call. What are some of the best practices we're going to go through on this? And we'll just, go through this in about 2 minutes or so. From a sales structure perspective, we think this is the ideal, that the hardcore cold calling is separated from the more complex prospecting teams, so that the development team, sales development team, do the hardcore cold calls, and then you've got quota carrying inside sales reps that do more the complex prospecting. And doing demonstrations is very important, being able to do remote demos, being able to really understand, what are the closing techniques in making sure that you drive business and sales closure as well. And even in the sales cold call as well, making sure that you establish early the start and the end, and give the customer expectations of what's going to happen within the call as well, right? And within the sales call as well. Very, very important, so they can anticipate what is expected down the line. Some of the key takeaways that we have on this is persistence, right? Like we just saw some of the stats, is that a lot of the salespeople give up too early. Making sales calls, especially cold calls, will never be an easy task. So please, you need to be prepared and prepare enough for it. Get our teams to be heavily prepared. The key to success, however, is having a thick skin and with a plan to really follow up and prepare call scripts and be okay with handling common sales, objections. When I look at emails as well as part of the customer call connection, before we go to the last one about the customer feedback. So 23% of sales emails are opened. Wow. Email marketing has 2 times higher return than cold calling. So at least it's better than cold calls. 44% of email recipients make at least one purchase last year based on a promotional email, right? B2B customers have become desensitized towards such as reports, focus, intelligence, and all that. So there's a bit of desensitization going on, and it's just because of the bombarding of emails, right? And then please remember that 40% of emails, probably even more, depending on your geography, are opened on mobile first, right? Where the average mobile screen can only fit 4 to 7 words maximum. So basically, while sometimes you can construct all these lists, great email, all that on a laptop, most of the time, depending on the demographics or your geography, it could be opened on a mobile at the first time. And therefore, either it will be responded to early, quickly, or maybe not, right? So on this, it's important to note, in terms of the click-through rates that are available when personalized emails, it takes the center stage, right? So how do you make sure that you don't just write out an email and get it personalized to the customer that you're writing it to, right? Using words such as sale, new, or video in the subject lines can boost the open rate as well. But the subject line itself, when personalized, right, can at least increase the open rate by 22%. The source of that is a best store, right? So what are some of the email takeaways? People are bombarded with emails from sunrise to sunset. Just remember that, right? Therefore, your email is just one of those ones. How do you make sure that you drive a high rate of it being opened and actioned on? It's important to craft subject lines that use power words proven to win the open. And also, please remember that 4 in every 10 emails are opened on a mobile device, right? And therefore, the subject lines should be kept really short as well. Good. We go to the last part of the customer connection, which is about the digital customer feedback. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard of NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. If you haven't, it's basically about how your customers rate you, right? So how does your customer rate you as a business? So they either rate you from a scale of 0 to 10, they either rate you as a promoter, or they're passive about you, or they're a detractor, basically. So based on that, you want to be able to make sure that you are building a framework that ties you now to your end customer, because now you can't get that feedback. Did they like your product? Especially when we're talking about a consumer, a final end consumer. Did they like your product? You don't know. They'll be scouring online. They'll go buy something else, and while you're there waiting for them. So your shop is closed. If you're at a physical shop, how do you make sure that they're giving there will be promoters, or at least you do want them to be detractors to your business or of your business, to speak ill of your business actively. You do not want that. So there are various digital customer feedback tools out there. Of course, Ajua provides one as well. But we want to say that you want to drive a strategy that makes sure that you have a digital connection with your customer now, because now you don't have a physical connection easily with your customers when you're managing your business and your customers remotely. So making sure you are aligning your customers along the NPS scale is very important. And building tools that integrate across along the architecture of integration across all the touch points with where a customer will be reaching you, whether it's on mobile, whether it's through various APIs, the CRM system that you set, Wi-Fi, POS system, WhatsApp, Twitter. You want to make sure that you have an integration structure that aligns all of them through whichever touch point they'll be coming to you and reaching you, your business online. And making sure that you have a complete feedback and action loop as well. It's enough to get feedback, but not enough if you really, really need to act on that feedback. So getting analytics into play and knowing what to do based on what feedback is everything, right? Getting feedback is one. Make sure that you have an architecture that aligns your internal ecosystem, the customer end-to-end feedback, understanding the data, analyzing it, building the various customer profiles that drives an action of what you need to achieve as well. So what we're saying is that you need to be able to embrace the new norm as we end in the next 1 or 2 minutes. Stay Alive campaign is a campaign that's driven by Ajua, Stay Alive as a business, to how we basically want to be able to promote the fact that yes, we're staying at home, we're staying safe, great. But will your customers still be with you when you come back and post-COVID in the upswing? You need to stay alive at this time to make sure you're there, your customers are still there, your employees are still there to drive your business forward, because we want to say this is the new norm. We need to embrace it. It's there with us to stay. There's certain skill sets that we will learn through this time. There's certain behaviors that we will unlearn, the new behaviors we will learn. And there are certain processes, whether it's with customers, with employees, that will go way beyond COVID, that will be part of us post-COVID. So it's about embracing the new normal, and staying alive as a business. Thank you. That ends exactly at the top of the hour, ends our webinar for Embrace the New Norm, working from home, managing your customers and your teams remotely. Thank you. If there are any questions online, we could take them over to you, Nida, or George and the team. Happy to take any of the questions that could have been online or on the Q&A. All right, are there any questions? If there are no questions, we will end the live stream in exactly 30 seconds.
There is a question from Dominic.
Thank you.
Dominic, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, let me just my question.
If you could read it out for Dominic, if it's not on the chart, if it's on the chart, you could read it out, please.
Can I ask over the microphone?
Yes, you can, please. We can hear you very clearly. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. It was a good one. Company culture was one of the
you're breaking, Dominic. I can hear you clearly, but you keep on going up and down. So if your connection is not very clear, maybe you want to type it on the chart.
Okay,
if you could type it on the chart so that we can have someone just read it out clearly. Grace or Nida, just read it out. Any other question? Also on voice? We'll take about 5 minutes of questions if we have time.
Hello. So the question Dominic is asking is, how do we handle the issue of cultural barriers in organizations?
Okay, so I would assume that this Dominic, you're asking this in the context of working remotely, right? Because cultural differences were, within an organization, whether it's working from home or not working from home, will always be there, right? Because we all come from different cultures, whether it's different geographies, different races, different tribes, different demographics as well, right? Age groups, all those cultures are different as well. And also, our beliefs as well, and our belief systems, all those form part of our culture. So culture will always, nobody's ever the same as the next person, right? So those are what groups us into culture. But also culture drives, can drive productivity as well. There is power in diversity as well. So I say how to handle cultural differences or cultural challenges is, number one, embracing culture, not fighting culture, right? We're talking about culture that exists as a person, not culture that exists as a negative culture that's, being bred within an organization, saying culture that exists as, this is who I am, where I've come from, and what I believe in, right? So on that, you want to be able to embrace that and then find the positive zones of how do you now make sure that you use it to drive productivity and drive efficiency as well, and actually drive innovation as well, right? Because different schools of thought or different people saying different things can actually lead you to creating a new product, new engagement model, new processes with the organization. So I would say manage culture by embracing it. Now, when working remotely, it's even a bit of a problem because we build cultural belief systems and cultural engagements through human-to-human interactions that we've evolved to do physically. When we see each other, when we touch and feel, when we speak, when I understand your tonality, when I take the non-verbal cues from you, we've built our cultural systems around that. How do you do that remotely now? Right. So, like we said before, you want to drive the video-to-video communication, very important. You want to drive the team cohesion and team bonding, very important as well, even though it's done online. And you want to be able to now understand through making sure you make it personal with your employees or with your managers or with your colleagues, understand the little nuances and then place the teams in the right place as well, right? So when you're building a team and building a project team, you want to be very deliberate on who you're putting where to drive diversity, but also embrace culture. I hope, Dominic, we are attempted to answer that. It's not a very easy question, right? But it's a very good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe if I one more, it's just like a follow-up.
Go ahead.
In terms of an example, we tried working with because I kept on calling us because I want to visit meeting. And I felt like it was more of something they used in the past. They had to break it. They want to sign papers. They want to meet.
Yeah, I'm finding it very difficult to follow you, Dominic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Nira, did you understand what Dominic is saying? So maybe you can repeat for me, please.
Unfortunately, I didn't hear.
In that case, maybe Dominic, if you don't mind, if it's possible again to type it, really appreciate. If we run out of time, then we'll be very happy to take up our one-on-one call with you as well on the follow-up. But it would be great if you could be able to type it because it's very difficult to understand you from the phone keeps on going up. And again, like we said, that's part of the challenges we have on doing things remotely on call as well, right? It's the communication part. All right. Any other question? Okay. In the absence of any other question, I think we will, George, you can end the live stream. And thank you very much. We welcome you to the next Ajua webinars under the Stay Alive campaign in the next couple of weeks. So thank you. Look out for the invites. And thank you very much. Looking forward to staying together, staying connected, and staying alive as a business. Stay safe, stay home. Thank you.
Thank you.